Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Arunachala Ramanaya Namaskaram. Today I'm going to be talking about verse 28 of Uḷḷadu Nāṛpadu Anubandham. This is like most of the verses of Uḷḷadu Nāṛpadu Anubandham. It's a translation of a Sanskrit verse, but is, according to some accounts, it is part of it's from Yoga Vashista, but I think that's very unlikely because the whole text of Yoga Vashista is available in translation along with the Sanskrit text and Roman paraphrase on wisdomlib.org. There are a lot of Sanskrit texts there, and one of them is this Yoga Vashista. And I have searched for this verse there, and doing an automatic Google search on that whole website, and it doesn't seem to be there. So I think it probably isn't part of Yoga Vashista, in spite of some accounts saying that it is. Sometime between 1928 and 31, how we know this date is because Uḷḷadu Nāṛpadu Anubandham was first published as, I think it was just 21 verses in 1928. And in 1931, it became 30 verses. And at that time, it was added to Uḷḷadu Nāṛpadu Anubandham between those years. So in that period, between 28 and 31, Bhagavan was one day explaining the implication of this particular Sanskrit verse, and Murugan recorded his explanation in two verses of Guru Vachaka Kavai, 1030 and 1031. I'll just briefly read a translation of these two verses, and then Bhagavan later summarized these in this verse, which is actually a more accurate translation of the Sanskrit verse. But what Murugan has recorded includes Bhagavan's explanations also, or at least a summary of what Bhagavan explained. So the meaning of the two verses composed by Murugan are: only the powerful jnani who has conquered the five senses by self-abidance, which blazes forth unobstructed, is the wielder of the thunderbolt of jnana, who has conquered Yama. Yama is the god of death, who will never turn back empty-handed. Who will never turn back. That means Yama, once he comes, he's not going to turn back empty-handed. When Yama comes for us, he's going to take us, is the implication. He, the jnani, is the son of jnana, which destroys the darkness of the appearance of the it just says that the appearance of jealousy, but it implies the so-called six inner enemies, namely desire, anger, miserliness, delusion, pride, and jealousy. That's the implication. And then it continues in the next verse: know that he, namely the jnani, who angrily driving it back into the heart, the implication being through self-attention, destroys the cruel Sura Padma, the I, namely ego, who possesses the power of creating and sustaining all the worlds through the six senses, is Kumara, Lord Subramanya, who revels in supreme bliss. When it says here that the I who possesses the power of creating and sustaining all the worlds through the six senses are the five senses that we're usually familiar with. The sixth of the senses is the inner sense, namely the mind, which sees through which perceives the world through all the other five senses. So that's the meaning of that. Murugan recorded based on Bhagavan's explanation. Then Bhagavan summarized this and gave the exact meaning of the verse in this Tamil verse, which is it's included as B20 in Guruvaccha Kukubai, and it was then added in Uڵḷadu Nāṛpadu Anubandham in 1931. The Tamil verse by Bhagavan is Arivunmai Nityanam Anmavittu Vittava Avan Arival Pulan Setran Artan Arivangi Avan Arivam Kulisatan Kala Kalan Avan Savine Mai Viran Ena Satru. So it consists of several sentences. The first sentence is Arivu unmei nityanam anmavittu avan arival pulan setran artan. That means whoever is one who has destroyed the senses by knowledge, one who is firmly fixed as unmei, Arivu unmei, that means awareness being, or awareness existence, or existence awareness. It means Satchit is the self-knower. What he means by destroying the senses by knowledge, so long as we rise as ego, we project a world through the five senses and experience that world through the five senses. So the nature of ego is to be always flowing out, that the attention of ego is always flowing out towards the world through the five senses. So the five senses are instruments through which ego projects and experiences a seemingly external world. Of course, it is not external, it's all a projection of ego, and ego projects only within itself. Just like when we're experiencing a dream, the dream world seems to be external to ourselves because we identify ourselves as a body in that dream world. So the rest of the dream world seems to be outside ourselves, external to ourselves. But actually, the whole dream is only happening within us. There's no external world, no body separate. It's all just an expansion of ego. As Bhagavan says in verse 26 of Uڵḷadu Nāṛpadu, Ahande undayin anatum undahum. If ego comes into existence, everything comes into existence. Ahande indrail indru anatum. If ego doesn't exist, everything doesn't exist. Ahande yavamam. Ego itself is everything. Why he says that is, everything there means all phenomena. All phenomena seem to exist only in the view of ego. So phenomena seem to exist only when we rise as ego. So if ego comes into existence, everything comes into existence. If ego doesn't exist, nothing exists. No, everything doesn't exist, as Bhagavan puts it there. Ego itself is everything. That is all phenomena. This entire universe is nothing but an expansion of ego. Ego projects itself outwards and sees itself as this world of multiplicity. As Bhagavan says in verse 6 of Arunachala Ashtakam, it experiences a world outside through the five senses and inside within the mind. That is a seemingly physical world outside and a mental world inside, but actually it's all only inside ego. It's nothing but modifications of that first thought, the thought I, namely ego. So conquering the senses is possible only when we conquer ego, the one who projects the senses and through the senses projects the world. Since ego is a false awareness of ourself as something other than what we are, ego itself is ignorance. What is in in um, in classical Advaita referred to as avidya or ajnana, which can be destroyed only by vidya or jnana. Avidya or ajnana means ignorance. That ignorance can only be destroyed by knowledge, which is called vidya or jnana. That ignorance, as Bhagavan made clear, is nothing but ego, the false awareness, I am this body. That is, ego is a false awareness of ourself, because it's awareness of ourself as something other than what we actually are. So ego as a false awareness is ignorance. The knowledge that will destroy ego is awareness of ourself as we actually are. So when he says that it been who has conquered the senses by knowledge, that means that when the true knowledge dawns, ego will thereby be destroyed, and along with it, the senses and everything projected through the senses will also be destroyed. So when we destroy ego by being aware of ourselves as we actually are, we are thereby firmly fixed as satchit, as being awareness, pure being awareness. That's what he means by arivu unmei nittanam. Nittan means nishta. That is the Sanskrit word nishta becomes nitta in Tamil, and nittan is a personal form of that. So nitta means one who is in nishta, or he who is in nishta. Nishta means to be firmly fixed. So arivu unmei nittan means one who is firmly established as satchit. So in other words, being as we actually are is what Bhagavan means by arivu unmei nittan. And that is the one who when he says Arival Pulan Setran Artan, that means whoever is the one who has conquered the senses by knowledge, and then implying that one is the one who is firmly fixed as himself, and he is the Anma-vichara, the knower of the self. We could also put the sentence slightly differently. We could also take it as whoever is the one who has destroyed the senses by knowledge is a self-knower, who is one who is firmly fixed as satchit. So as Bhagavan says in verse 26 of Upadesha, Tanai iritale tanai aridalam. Being oneself alone is knowing oneself. That is, we know ourselves just by being as we actually are. Because what we actually are is pure awareness. Pure awareness is always aware of itself as it actually is. So in order to know ourselves as we actually are, we need to be as we actually are. And being as we actually are means not rising as ego. And in order to cease rising as ego, that is, to destroy ego, we need to be aware of ourselves as we actually are. So by knowing ourselves as we actually are, we thereby put an end to the rising of ego and remain as we actually are, namely as satchit. So all that, there's a lot of implication in this first sentence. And then he goes on to say, Aribu Angi, yes, Aribu Angi Avan. He is the fire of knowledge, Jnanagni. Arivu is a Tamil word which means knowledge or awareness. It's the equivalent of the Sanskrit word jnana. So Jnanagni means the fire of jnana. He is the fire of jnana. Arivuam kulis satan. And that means the the one who wields the thunderbolt that is knowledge. That is this jnana is so powerful, like a thunderbolt, it will destroy everything that it hits. That's the implication. And then he says, Kala Kalan, Avan Savine Mai Viran Ena Satru. Declare that he, Kala Kalan, is the hero who has killed death. Kala means time. It also means death, because time is going to kill all of us. In due course, we are all going to die. So Yama, the god of death, is often referred to as Kalan. And since Shiva is the one who kills death, that he is death to death, he is called Kala Kalan. So so Kala Kala means time to time or death to death. That is just like time will bring this body to an end. Lord Shiva will bring time to an end. So he's the one who destroys time. He's the one who destroys death. So he's the hero who has killed death. Another implication that is here is when he says he's the fire of jnana. Fire is one of the two of the principal Vedic gods, the gods who were to whom all the yagas and yajnas were made offerings. They are Agni, the god of fire, and Indra, the king of the gods. And the weapon of Indra is the thunderbolt. So indirectly, what Bhagavan is saying here, when he says he's the fire of knowledge, the one who wields the thunderbolt that is knowledge, he implies he is Agni, the Vedic god Agni, he's the Vedic god Indra, and he is Kala Kalan, Shiva. So one of the implications of this verse is sometimes people used to speculate. Some of Bhagavan's devotees said that Bhagavan is an incarnation of Subramanya. Others said no, Bhagavan is Shiva himself. And other people, maybe according to their particular, those who were devotees of Krishna, considered Bhagavan as Krishna. But what Bhagavan is saying here is that the jnani is not an incarnation of any particular god. He's the reality of all gods. He's Agni, he's Indra, he's Shiva, he's Vishnu. I mean, it's not stated here. He's Vishnu. In that verse of Murugan recorded with Bhagavan's explanation, it says he's Subramanya. So the jnani is the reality of all gods. All that is actually God is one, but he appears in different names and forms according to suit the needs of different devotees. But the reality behind all those names and forms is the one God, Brahman, which is the jnani is Brahman itself. He's not an incarnation of a particular God. He is the reality of all the gods. This is what Murugan implied when he sang in Sannidhi Murai. He sang two songs called Tiruvundiya. In the first one, he narrated the leelas of many of the Hindu gods as narrated in the Puranas, and he said for each story it is Bhagavan who appeared in the form of Mahavishnu and killed Narakasura. It is Bhagavan who appeared as Rama and killed Ravana. It is Bhagavan who is in the form of Krishna taught the Gita to Arjuna. It is, and it's like this. He's telling so many of the leelas, and when he told the leela of Lord Shiva appearing in the Dwaraka forest to subdue the pride of so-called rishis who were doing karmas in the forest, trying to get power and whatever, he asked Bhagavan to write the teachings that were given by Lord Shiva, those teachings are Upadesha Undiyya. So, but the point I'm trying to make is, in that first Tiruvundiya, he's saying all these different names of all these different Hindu gods, they are all none other than Bhagavan. It is Bhagavan Ramana who appeared in the form of all these different gods. And then there's a much shorter Tiruvundiya 2, in which he briefly tells the story of Buddha, who started who set the wheel of Dharma, who set the wheel of Dharma in motion, and said that it was Bhagavan who appeared in the form of Buddha. And then he also refers to Jesus Christ and said it is Bhagavan who appeared in the form of Jesus and died on the cross to remove the sins of the world. So according to Muruggana, all gods, whatever god, the gods of all religions, all the different different names and forms of God worshipped by different sects, the reality of all of them is Bhagavan Ramana. That is Muruggana's conviction. That is also implied here in this verse. Bhagavan is not saying particularly about himself, but the jnani, the one who has destroyed the senses by knowledge. He is the reality of every god, is what Bhagavan implies in this verse. I wrote an explanatory that is, if I read just the English translation of the verse, the literal English translation is, whoever is one who has destroyed the senses by knowledge, one who is fixed as firmly as existence awareness or being awareness, Satchit, is a self-knower. He is the fire of knowledge, one who wields the thunderbolt that is knowledge, declare that he, Kalakalan, is the hero who has killed death. That's the translation. And the explanatory paraphrase I gave for that is, in which I also included some alternative meanings for certain words, whoever is the one who has destroyed, killed, conquered, or vanquished the five senses by Arivu. Actually, I could have put there six senses, because that's what Muruggana puts in verse 1031 of Guru Vachaka Kavai. He's mentioned there the six senses by knowledge. By knowledge here means pure awareness, or jnana, true knowledge, namely clear awareness of us, of oneself as one actually is. One who is thereby firmly fixed as Unmei Aribu, existence awareness, or Satchit, is Atma-vid, a self-knower, namely one who knows oneself as one actually is. He is Arivagni, Aribu Angi, the fire of knowledge, or Jnanagni. He is the one who wields the thunderbolt that is knowledge, namely Jnana Vajrayana, the divine weapon of Jnana, which destroys ignorance, namely ego and all its effects. Declare that he, Kalakalan, Lord Shiva, who is Kalakala, death to death, is the hero who has killed death. This reference to Kalakalan and the hero who killed death, we can also take that as a reference to Bhagavan's own life, because when as a 16-year-old boy, when that fear of death came to him, instead of looking for any remedy, he wanted to investigate and find out the reality of death. Death, we all know the body is going to die, but do we die along with the death of the body? That's what Bhagavan turned his attention within to investigate and find out whether what we actually are is killed when the body is killed. Thereby that is the one who to whom the fear arose, turned within and merged back into its source, and thereby he conquered the senses by knowledge, and he killed death by killing death seems to come to us so long as we identify ourselves as I am this body. The one what identifies it, what is aware of itself as I am this body is ego. So when ego is destroyed, death is thereby destroyed. Death is destroyed and time is destroyed, because time is one of the many phenomena that appear whenever we rise as ego. That is, time and space are the framework in which the whole all phenomena appear. And that all phenomena, including this framework, all exist only in the view of ego. So when ego is destroyed, the whole, all phenomena, along with their framework, is also destroyed along with them. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Arunachala Ramanaya. I hope that was an adequate explanation of that verse.
Thank you, Michael. Can you hear me well?
Yes, I can hear you clearly.
Okay, thank you. So I'm looking at this verse, and something that struck me is the way he framed that sentence: "Whoever is one who has destroyed the senses by knowledge."
Yes.
In other words, the emphasis on knowledge, not the destruction of senses.
Yes.
Because once the knowledge is achieved, the destruction of senses will automatically follow, right? Because a lot of teachers, spiritual teachers, sometimes they say, "Oh, we will have to, control your senses first, and then you will be ready for the pursuit of jnana," and so forth. But I think to the extent that we've been pulled into this path, we should just go ahead and pursue self-attention, and because automatically the destruction of senses will follow.
Yes.
So which is primary and which is secondary? We need to get that clear.
Bhagavan didn't directly ask us to control the senses, but he did tell us to turn our attention within. To the extent to which our attention is turned within, it is thereby not flowing out through the senses. So we control the senses, what is recommended in all in yoga and all spiritual paths, controlling the senses in bhakti and yoga, in all these spiritual paths, they all recommend control of the senses. But Bhagavan showed us the practical, effective way to control the senses. That is, the senses are jada. The senses are just windows, so to speak, through which we perceive the world. So the problem is not the senses themselves. The problem is our attention going out through the senses towards the world. So if we turn our attention within, to the extent to which our attention is fixed on ourselves, it's thereby withdrawn from the senses, from all phenomena. So what Bhagavan gives us a simple, this is the beauty of Bhagavan's teaching. There's only one thing Bhagavan has asked us to do, simply to attend to ourselves. But if we attend to ourselves, that is nishkarmiya karma, that is bhakti, that is yoga, that is jnana, that is all the different spiritual paths are accomplished by simply turning our attention towards ourselves. That's why Bhagavan says in verse 10 of Upadesha Undiyar, Udite idatil odungi iratil adu karmamum yogamum undipara. Sorry, karmamum bhaktium undipara adu yogamum jnanamum undipara. That means udita idatil means the place of rising. In other words, the source from which we've risen namely our own being. What he referred to in the previous verse as satbhava, the state of being. So in our own being, that is the place from which we've risen. So udita idatil odungi means subsiding back into the place from which we've risen. Iratal, and thereby being there, just being as we actually are, that is the culmination of all these four different paths. So there's no need for us to practice karma yoga or bhakti yoga or raja yoga or jnana yoga. All we need to do is to attend to ourselves, and we are in effect practicing all of those. As he also says in verse 14 of Uڵḷadu Nāṛpadu Anubandham, which we talked about some months ago, in which he says, in investigating for whom are such like karma, vibhakti, viyoga, and ajnana is itself karma, bhakti, yoga, and jnana. Because all these, he goes on to say, when one investigates without I, they never exist. That is, all these different practices, that is karma yoga, it means the practice of nishkamya karma, that is intended to overcome the problem of kamya karma, action done with desire. Bhakti is intended to overcome our lack of bhakti. Our desire for other things is our lack of bhakti for the reality, our lack of love for the reality. Yoga is intended to overcome separation, viyoga, and jnana is intended to overcome ignorance. But all these defects, this karma, this vibhakti, viyoga, and ajnana, they all exist only for ego. And when we investigate ego, ego subsides and they all cease to exist. So, and then as Bhagavan ends that verse by saying, only being permanently as oneself is what is true. So this path of self-investigation, simply turning our attention back towards ourselves and trying to hold on to that self-attention, if we follow this simple practice, we achieve the benefit following all other types of spiritual practices. And as far as bhakti is concerned, that is the pinnacle of bhakti is surrender. That is, true love is not about, if we truly love someone, we want to give to that person. We don't want to get anything from that person. We want to give. So the true bhakti is to give ourselves wholly to God, not expecting anything in return. So and how to give ourselves completely to God? We can do so only by turning within, because only when we turn within will ego subside. And that subsidence of ego, that is giving ourselves to God. That is surrender. So this simple path of self-investigation achieves everything that is all other paths, all other spiritual practices set out to achieve. For example, yoga, the aim of yoga is yoga's chitta vritti nirodha. Yoga is stopping the mental activity. But as Bhagavan made clear, by the practices of if we follow Patanjali's Yoga Sutra and practice pranayama and all this dharana, dhyana and all these things, the most we can achieve is a temporary cessation of mental activity. In other words, manolaya. But that is not, as Bhagavan says, if the mind subsides in Laya, it will rise again and wander under the sway of its vasanas. So the true aim is not just a temporary stopping of mental activity, permanent cessation of mental activity. Since the root of all chitta vrittis is the aham vritti, the I thought, the ego, only by destroying ego can we put an end to chitta vrittis permanently and forever. And the only way to achieve that is by self-investigation.
Thank you, Michael. And
can I say one more thing there?
Sure, go ahead.
That is why chapter 6 of the Bhagavad Gita is generally, I think, I'm not sure what the title is called. I have a feeling it's called Dhyana Yoga. The yoga of meditation.
Yoga of meditation.
And people usually take that Krishna is there teaching Patanjali Yoga Sutra. But one thing Krishna says there, but Patanjali doesn't say obviously he's not teaching Patanjali Yoga Sutra, but what he's teaching in that is the essence of what Patanjali later wrote in the Yoga Sutra. But one thing Krishna mentions there, when he goes through the different steps of yoga, he finally said what we should meditate on. In verses 25 and 26, I think, he says, but in 25, he says, gradually bringing the mind to a standstill, Atma samstam mana kritvana kinchitape chintayat. Fix the mind on self and do not think of anything else. So that is the path of Atma-vichara. So Krishna made it clear in the Bhagavad Gita, but yoga can be, that he did, Krishna didn't say this explicitly, but by implication he taught, but the yoga, the culmination of the path of yoga is to turn our attention within and fix it on ourselves and not think of anything else. I mean, in the next verse, he goes on to say, wherever the mind wanders, as per its nature, bring it back and fix it in self. So what he describes in those two verses is the path of Atma-vichara as taught by Bhagavan. That is why Bhagavan in Upadesha in verses 11 and 12, he explains why pranayama is an effective means to curb the activity of the mind. After explaining that, in verse 13, he says, the dissolution of mind is of two kinds. That is, here he's giving us a warning. Dissolution of mind is of two kinds, Laya and Nasa. What is dissolved in Laya will rise again. What is dissolved in Nasa will not rise again. Then how to bring about that Nasa, the permanent dissolution of the mind? He explains in the next verse, verse 14, the mind which will subside when the breath is controlled, only when that mind is sent on the Vari, the path of knowledge, the Vari, the path of knowledge, the path of knowing, the path of investigating, will its form die. So just like Krishna has indirectly indicated that all the practices of yoga reach their culmination in self-attentiveness, Bhagavan has taught the same in Upadesha. So if we take to this path, if we follow Bhagavan's path to the best of our ability, it's a struggle for all of us, but if we try our best to attend to ourselves, this is the ultimate spiritual path. And by this path, we achieve everything that we could achieve by following any other path. As Bhagavan often used to say, even a little effort made in this path is worth any amount of effort made in any other practices, because this is the direct path, the path of turning our attention back to the source, back to ourself, back to the place from which we've risen. And only when we turn our attention back to the place from which we've risen do we thereby subside and merge there in such a way that we never rise again.
Thank you, Michael.
Yeah.
So, and then he goes on to say, the fire, he uses the term fire of knowledge, right? Mm. So you see this analogy to fire being used whenever they're describing something pertaining to jnana.
Yeah.
And Arunachala is referred to as Agni.
Yes.
Agni.
That's one thing, Bhagavan. That is, Arunachala is generally considered to be one of the Panchabhuta lingas. Panchabhuta means the 5 elements. So there's a particular Shiva kshetra that is associated with each of the elements. For example, Chidambaram is associated with the Akasa linga, the space linga. I think Kalahasti is the wind linga. I can't remember what the other two are. But anyway, the Tiruvannamalai is considered as the Agni lingam, the fire lingam. But one thing Bhagavan said about this, though Arunachala is often considered to be one among the 5 Panchabhuta lingas, it is not actually the fire. Arunachala is the hill of fire, but it's not the fire. It's not one of the 5 elements. It's the fire of jnana that is referred to. So though it from a superficial point of view, Arunachala appears to be one of the five elements, what it actually is that is the fire that is Arunachala is the fire of knowledge, which is not one of the five elements. It's the fundamental reality which will destroy everything else. Sakalamam virangum kadirali yinamana jalajamalati Arunachala. Son of bright rays, but swallow everything. Make my mind blossom, my mind lotus blossom. So it's the fire that will destroy everything. By destroying ego, the root of everything.
Right. Thank you, Michael. Then I'm just looking at the verse. So, the Kalakalan, the hero who has killed death.
Yes.
So basically, at this point, you're liberated from the cycle of births and deaths.
Yeah. We can kill death only when we kill birth, because birth and death are a pair, they're a dyad, and the root of all dyads is ego. That is, we are subject to birth and death so long as we rise as ego, because we rise as ego, grasping the form of a body as I. So this body that we mistake to be ourself, it was born a few years ago, and sometime in the not too distant future, it's going to die. We all know that. But so we have how to go beyond birth and death. This is the great, the ultimate aim of this is the ultimate Purushartha. In Guru Vachaka Govai, Bhagavan said, that is, it's generally said there are four Purusharthas: Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha. Dharma means, Dharma has many meanings, but basically it means righteousness, a good, virtuous life. Artha means wealth, prosperity. Kama means sensual desire for sensual pleasures and the fulfillment of those desires, and moksha. But Bhagavan says in Guru Vachaka Govai, moksha is the only real Purushartha. But why then do the ancient texts talk about four Purusharthas? The reason is because it is, so long as we identify ourselves as a body, it is natural for us to desire material prosperity. At least we want to have enough food, shelter, and clothing to live a reasonably comfortable life. But we are never satisfied. Whatever we have, we want more and more. So this desire to accumulate possessions, to accumulate wealth, this is one of the basic desires that is almost hardwired into being a human being. And not only human beings, other animals, though they don't possess wealth like we do, many animals have a very strong territorial instinct. They will, certain area, that is my area. Anyone who comes into my area, they have to be driven out. And the sensual pleasures, the karma, the desire for sensual pleasure, this is also, this is natural for all of us. So why should these two be called Purushartha, the aims of life? It is just, why they are said to be aims of life, because everyone is aiming for these anyway. But before these two comes dharma. That is, there are people who don't follow follow no ethical principles. Might is right is their only principle. If I can get more wealth, if I can get more pleasure, doesn't matter how many people I have to walk over, how many people I have to exploit and take advantage of. Might is right. That's the mentality of many people. So it is taught, but first we should abide by dharma. We should abide by certain ethical principles. And all the scriptures of different religions, they all lay down certain do's and don'ts, things that we should abide by. So though people are not immediately asked to give up their desire for wealth and sensual pleasures, they're told, yes, you can have your desire for all these things, and if you behave yourself in this life, then in the next life you'll go to heaven and you'll be able to enjoy even more of these things. But you must follow the principles of Dharma, the principles laid down. Yeah, of course, every religion has its own Dharma, its own principles of how we should behave. So it is to begin to by saying that it's okay to enjoy all these things, to seek wealth and to seek sensual pleasure, so long as we do so in a way that will not harm others, is basically what Dharma is about. Not harming others is Dharma, to put it in very simply. So this is a way of curbing the desires, limiting the desires. Say, okay, you can have your desires, but you should, if you want to enjoy all these things, if you want to enjoy wealth and sensual pleasures, you should do so, curbing within certain restrictions. You shouldn't cause harm to others. By prescribing this, which is what most of religions in the world are all about. It's what most of the Vedas are about. The whole of the Karma Kanda is all about this. This is a way of slowly curbing the desires and purifying the mind. But eventually we come to know, however much wealth we may have, whatever great sensual pleasures we have, even if we go to the highest of all heavens and stay there for billions of years, enjoying all these things, these are all finite. Finite things have a beginning and have an end. So whatever we may enjoy, it's all limited. It's limited in time, it's limited in extent. So if we want unlimited happiness, eternal happiness, we have to give up all these things. And that is why moksha is the ultimate goal of all. That's why Bhagavan said that is the real Purushartha. All the others, these are just like a carrot held in front of a donkey. In order to bring the donkey to the place where it's meant to go, the carrot is hung in front. So these other Purusharthas, Dharma, Artha, and Karma, these are like the carrot. But the ultimate goal is moksha. I can't even remember the context in which I started saying this. I think you had said something, and oh yes, about death. That is what in this world, whatever wealth we may acquire, there are people now in the world with hundreds of billions of dollars, but how long are they going to enjoy it? Like all of us, they are destined. They are destined for death. We are all destined for death. So whatever we acquire, and even those who seek pleasures in some afterworld, in heaven, even in the highest heaven, what is experienced in heaven is just the fruit of karmas. Since karmas are finite, the fruit of karmas are also finite. So there's no such thing as an eternal heaven. We may be in a very blissful state for some time, enjoying the fruits of our good karmas, but sooner or later we have to come back again. So that's why Bhagavan says in the second verse of Upadeshundya, the fruit of karma passing away. Vinayam vilevu vilevutu vittai. That is, the fruit of karma will pass away. In Sanskrit, he says, palamasaswatam. The fruit of karma is impermanent. If we've done good actions, we experience correspondingly good fruit, but it's all limited. And as he goes on saying that second verse of Upadeshundya, though the fruit of karma passes away, the seeds remain, the seeds of the vasanas, which compel us to do the same action again and again and again. So this is all endless until we put an end to who is this I who rises with desire to enjoy wealth and sensual pleasures, and who engages in actions in order to achieve this. Who is this I? If we investigate that I will merge back in its source, and then we will discover that our real nature is infinite and eternal happiness. Moksha is not the fruit of a karma. As Bhagavan says, karma cannot give liberation, because karma is limited. Moksha is unlimited. It's the state of being the infinite Satchidananda that we actually are.
Right. Well, thank you, Michael. So I think Stuart, you had a question.
Michael, just to clarify, since there is no cause for ego, correct?
Yeah. Yes.
And that ego doesn't actually exist like the horns of a hare.
Yeah.
And therefore the world doesn't actually exist.
Yes.
Therefore, it never really existed.
Yes.
There has always only been Sat-Chit.
Yes.
We experience the appearance of a world through the unknowable reason of ego arising.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Is this Stuart's question or Chester's question?
Chester is my cat.
I know Chester's your cat.
Oh, Chester's a bhakta. He's a bhakta.
Because you have your name there as Stuart and Chester, so I asked.
We're together. I mean,
I know.
He's a bhakta. He's a bhakta.
Good. That's why I asked whether it's your question or his question.
This was my question. He doesn't ask questions. He just likes to be fed and taken care of.
Okay, good. He's wise.
He's much smarter than us.
Yes.
Okay, just wanted to clarify that, because
yeah.
we can loop around again and again and again, thinking, oh, I have to do this, oh, I have to do that. But that is yama. That is yama.
Yeah.
The action of, oh, I have to do something is yama.
Yeah.
But then, of course, self-inquiry.
Bhagavan says in one verse in Guru Vachaka Kovai, the guru who gives do's and don'ts is both Brahma and Yama. Brahma is the creator, so one who starts all this trouble, and Yama is the one who this death that comes again and again. So the true guru will not say do this or don't do that. The true guru will just say be as you are.
Exactly. So then, but self-inquiry is given to us because we have to burn up our vasanas. Yeah,
because that is how to be as we are. We always are as we are. The truth is, there's never a moment we're anything other than what we are. But we seem to be something else because we've risen as ego. So in order to be as we actually are, we need to cease rising as ego. And in order to cease rising as ego, we need to investigate ourselves.
Indeed, except that ego never has actually arisen.
Ego has never risen, but it seems to have arisen.
Agree. But if we acknowledge and know
in whose view has ego risen?
Mine.
Only in the view of ego.
The I thought.
Yeah. Oh, well, ego and I thought are one and the same thing.
Yes,
that is,
exactly.
Ego seems to is an illusion that seems to exist only in its own view.
Yes.
That's why we seem to be ego only so long as we look at other things. If we look at ourselves, there's no such thing as ego to be found.
Right.
As Bhagavan says in verse 17 of Upadesh Undya, Manati Nuruve Maravadu Chava, Manamenum Ondrile Undi Para.
Right.
Manam, that mind, that he's referring to ego. So the form of the mind means the essential form of the mind is ego. If we investigate that without forgetting, it'll be clear that there's no such thing as mind at all.
Yeah.
That's why he said, this is the direct path for all. He concludes that verse by saying, because anything else we do, we as ego are trying to do something to achieve something.
Right.
So it's all just beating around the bush. The direct path, am I ego in the first place? Who is this I who rises to achieve this or that? Who is this I who's out to seek moksha or union with God or bhakti or whatever? Who is this I? If we investigate that, we'll find there's no such thing at all. But we always have been as we always are.
Yes. So this ghost ego is forever in samsara. But when we investigate, Bhagavan gives us the tool of self-investigation to turn our attention inward to the self so that we can stop running on the wheel of samsara.
Yeah, ego itself is samsara. Bhagavan said in verse 24 that all this samsara that we're experiencing is nothing but ego, nothing but ego. So the whole problem, that is, Bhagavan is a great doctor who is diagnosed what is the root cause of all our problems, whatever type of problem we may have, whatever type of mental ailments, physical ailments, economic ailments, or anything, whatever troubles we have, it all comes down to ego. Who is the one who experiences all these difficulties, all these problems,
only
all
ego.
these pains? It's only ego.
Right.
That's why Bhagavan said ego is the original sin. That is, the sinner is the original sin.
Sure, sure. And the great mystery is that ego even arises. That's the great mystery.
Has it arisen? That's what Bhagavan asks. Bhagavan asks us.
Excuse me.
It seems to have arisen. It seems to have arisen. But Bhagavan says, if you look to see, you'll find no such thing at all. It has never actually arisen.
Exactly. By focusing on oneself, the ghost-like ego no longer exists and never existed ever.
Exactly. But until we investigate ourselves, there's no use telling ourselves, oh, there's no such thing as ego, because we are caught up. I mean, it's like a drowning person saying there's no such thing as drowning.
Well,
we can't get rid of a drowning simply by saying there's no such thing as for drowning. We need to turn our attention within and see for ourselves that there's no such thing as ego.
Exactly. So then when someone says, there's no such thing as ego intellectually, it's a spiritual bypass.
They're fooling themselves.
Yeah, exactly.
Because to whom does the world appear?
Ego.
So we can't, so long as you experience a world, saying there's no ego is you're just fooling yourself.
I finally understand you. Thank you.
Yeah. We're all fooling ourselves, but we're trying to put an end to this fooling ourselves by turning within to see what we actually are.
That's why we're given the tool of self-investigation.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's why Bhagavan manifested as appears to have manifested as an external Sadguru.
In order to tell us to turn within,
exactly,
to see that we don't exist as ego, what we actually are is what he actually is.
Exactly. Not the form of the guru, but the actual
Swarupa, the actual form, the true form, the formless form.
The formless form, which only appears to us as a form because we identify with ego.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because our real nature is infinite love. So that infinite love has appeared outwardly in the form of Bhagavan in order to save us from ourselves.
Amen.
Thank you, Michael.
Bhagavate Sri Ramana.
Yes.
So in verses 26, 27, and 28, one of the devotees is asking, the word Veera or Veera is used, which means warrior, brave warrior, hero, and so forth. So the question is there any special reason he's using the word Veera here? Is it to emphasize that courage is needed to kill ego, sort of a perseverance and so forth?
In this 28, actually, the word Veera isn't used, but in 26 and 7, it is used. Yes, we need courage to follow this path. This is the ultimate heroism. In a battlefield, who are the heroes? The heroes are those who are ready to lay down their life for their country, for their comrades. So we come to this spiritual battlefield to lay down our life. So this is the ultimate courage. At least in a battlefield, a soldier may think that he has some chance of surviving. But if we enter this spiritual battlefield, we enter this spiritual battlefield knowing that death is certain in this battle. So this is the ultimate courage, to give ourselves wholly to God.
In 28, it's occurs Viran, the word Viran in 28.
Does it? Is it?
Yeah.
Where?
In the last line. Viran and Asatra.
Oh, yes. Yes, you're right. Sorry, I switched over to 14. I was looking at 14.
No problem.
Yeah. The hero has killed death. Yes. Sorry, I didn't notice that. Yeah, that's a good point. Yes, it is there. It's in all those 3 verses. So this is what a hero is: the one who has conquered, who dies, who has died in such a way that death is conquered.
Right.
That is, in order to conquer death, we must die. And in order to be willing to lay down our life, in order to conquer death, that is the ultimate heroism.
Right. Thank you, Michael. Ram Tanati, go ahead.
Thank you. Om Namo Ramanaya. A few questions here. Michael, in Gita, you said there is a shloka which talks about Mano Laya and Mano Nasha. Can you tell me which shloka?
No. That I was comparing what Krishna says in Gita with what Bhagavan says in Upadesha. In verse 13 of Upadesha, Bhagavan says about the dissolution of minds is of 2 kinds, Laya and Nasa.
Right. I thought the Gita
because
also.
That is in Upadesha, verses 11 to 15. We can say 11 to 15 are about the path of yoga. So in the first 2 verses, 11 and 12, he says, what is the efficacy? He explains the efficacy of pranayama. But in 13, without explicitly saying it, he implies what is the limitation of pranayama. Pranayama can bring about the dissolution of mind, but only temporarily. In Nana, in the 8th paragraph, he says explicitly at the end, in the final sentence, therefore pranayama is a means to curb the mind or to subdue the mind, but it cannot bring about manonasa. So we have to bear that in mind. So what he implies in verse 13 is that though we can achieve manolaya by means of pranayama, we cannot achieve manonasa. So how to achieve manonasa? Then he says in the next verse, the mind which will subside by controlling the breath, only when that mind is sent on the Ovari, the path of knowing, the path of investigating, will its form die.
This is in Upadesha.
This is in Upadesha.
Okay.
In Gita, Krishna doesn't deal with it in quite the same way, but we can see the same implication there in Gita, because in Gita he goes through he more or less talks about all these different asanas and fixing the mind and this and that, all the preliminaries of yoga he talks about. But then when he comes to verses 25 and 26, the dhyana he talks about is not dhyana, not meditation on any object. It's meditation on the reality of the subject. Atma-samstam, manakritva, make the mind fixed in self. Do not think of anything else. So what I was saying is the implication in that chapter of Gita and the implication of what Bhagavan is saying in Upadesha is the same implication.
Okay, got it. But the action is very clear in Gita with that yato yato nischarati manaschanchala astiram.
Exactly. Yeah. Krishna has beautiful, in those two verses, Krishna has beautifully explained the practice of self-investigation.
Right. And he said
it can only be achieved sane, gradually, mella, as Bhagavan says in Tamil. Bhagavan has translated those two verses as part of Bhagavad Gita Saram. Okay. So gradually, gently, we need, because the nature of the mind is going outwards. But slowly, we need to curb it and turn it within And however many times it wanders outwards, we need to bring it back. That's exactly what Bhagavan is saying in the 6th paragraph of Nana. However many thoughts rise, so what? As and when each thought rises, it is necessary to investigate to whom it has arisen. That's what Krishna is saying there. Wherever the mind wanders, bring it back.
Right. The only thing about this, how many ever times the thoughts arise, bring it back, at one point, the mind may tell us, oh, this is not working, this is not true type of a thing, because thoughts keeps on arising and you keep on bringing it back. And then the process is pretty slow, and mind then can confuse you saying, oh, you know what, this process doesn't work. So
this is why one of the, in classical Advaita, even in Vivekachudamani, Shankara has given, he talks about the 4 sadhanas. And one of the 4 sadhanas is the Samadhi Shakha Sampatti. And one of those is Shraddha. Shraddha is often translated as faith. But faith, I think, is a bit of a misleading word, because faith is associated with religions like Christianity, where they say you just have to believe. They don't give a reason why you have to believe, but it's blind. They say faith is a leap in the dark, but Shraddha is not a leap in the dark. Shraddha is explained by Adi Shankara and by Bhagavan in his translation of those verses of Vivekachudamani. It's defined as nischaya. That is the certainty, the conviction. And that another meaning of nischaya is investigation. So nischaya implies the conviction or certainty that is reached by means of careful consideration and investigation. So we need to have a clear understanding of the teachings, because we need to have a strong conviction in order to stick to this path. Because if we don't have a strong conviction, as you say, doubts will start assailing us. Or is it really worth taking all this effort to turn my attention towards myself? I don't seem to be making any progress. I've been doing this for so many years. I'm not making any progress. Let me try some japa instead, or let me do some puja, or let me try this pranayama or something. That is, if we don't have that shraddha means a clear conviction, but not just a blind belief in that, because blind belief won't do us much good when we face real challenges. And this path is a real challenge, because the nature of the mind is we constantly going outwards, and we are trying to turn the mind, whose very nature is to go outwards, we're trying to turn it back within. So this requires shraddha. It requires that firm conviction, but that conviction is born of careful consideration, thinking about the teachings carefully, truly understanding why Bhagavan teaches what he teaches us, and then but the clarity can come to a certain extent from the manana, from thinking about it carefully, from making sense of it and understanding the reasons why. But the real clarity comes from turning the attention within. So the shraddha is that conviction born of careful consideration and investigation. The more we turn our attention within, the clearer we will see the truth of what Bhagavan is saying. So the stronger will our conviction become. And that conviction is absolutely essential in order for us to stick to this path. If we've got only a half-baked understanding, we'll start wavering naturally, because it's extremely challenging to follow this path. But the reward is the ultimate, the supreme reward, infinite and eternal happiness. But we have to understand this clearly and correctly.
You said Shraddha comes from careful consideration, and you said a second point also.
Investigation. That means implies self-investigation.
Got it. And as another, I guess, segue there, in our discussion today, we talked about, in some context, Yamadharmaraja, we talked about heaven and hell, and then in other sessions, we talk about mountain, the Arunachala mountain being very holy. But aren't these all thoughts? The basic thing remains, to whom are these thoughts coming? And going back to that source, investigating to whom these thoughts are coming. Is that true?
Absolutely.
Because we seem to go in
what is Arunachala? What is Arunachala? Though Arunachala appears outwardly in the form of a hill, what it actually is what is shining in our heart as eye. Because our attention goes outwards, it appears in outward form as a support. But that outward form is constantly reminding us to turn back within.
Makes perfect sense. Thank you for that, because that is one thing I struggled with, which is how can the physical mountain be for the focus? It's just a thought. We need to figure out who is getting that thought.
Yes, but if we read Bhagavan's Arunachala Stuti Panchakam and understand what he's saying there, then we will understand why that is. Just like Bhagavan has appeared in human form, he also appears in the mountain form. But the purpose, why has he appeared in human form? Not for us to worship his outward form, for us to turn within. Of course, we have great love for his outward form, because through that outward form, he's given us these precious teachings. So we also have love for the form of Arunachala. But the purpose of these outward manifestations is only to turn us within.
Got it. Makes complete sense. The next is when I do to whom do these thoughts arise, self-investigation, I do turn inward. And I mean, if I were to put a timer objectively in microseconds, I'm there probably still investigating, and then another thought comes, it grows quickly and go on. So no matter how many of our thoughts come, once I catch that I'm thinking, then I need to again come back saying exactly to whom these thoughts are rising.
Yeah. It's not just a matter of saying to whom.
No.
Bhagavan says investigate to whom. That means, investigating to whom means turning our attention away from whatever appears back towards ourselves, for one to whom it appears.
Right. And we are all, I appreciate that. Final question is, we all are here because we are having the mind and the ego, yet we say it's not true, but it is true, because that's why we are here, trying to figure out what's happening. I mean, this is more a rhetorical question, but I mean, isn't ego created by the soul then?
No.
Ego itself is the soul. Ego is the root.
There's no understanding of how it appears to arise.
It appears to have arisen because we haven't looked at it carefully. If we look at it carefully, we'll see no such thing exists.
Right. Otherwise, we'll investigate Maya.
Yeah. Well, Maya is nothing but ego. Investigating Maya means turning our attention back to ourselves.
Exactly. Right.
All right. Thanks, Michael. Thanks, whoever.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Back to you, Kumar. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So Mellon is quoting from, there is a book called Face to Face with Ramana Maharshi. It's published by the Ramana Center in Hyderabad. Okay, I'm going to just read it. What is the purpose of creation? Usually, Bhagavan gave replies in Tamil, Telugu, or Malayalam. This time, he spoke directly in English and asked, "Can the eye see itself?" Dr. Syed replied, "Of course not. It can see everything else, but not itself." To Bhagavan's question that if it wants to see itself, he said, it can see itself only in a mirror. Bhagavan then commented, that is it. Creation is the mirror for the eye to see itself. Comments, Michael?
I don't know how accurately that is recorded, or exactly what, if Bhagavan did say something to that effect, exactly what he meant, because the eye, the organ of sight, is jada. It has no awareness, so it cannot see itself. But ego is a form of awareness, and as awareness, it is aware of itself. So the real awareness, the awareness that underlies and supports the appearance of ego, the pure awareness, is Swayam Prakasa. It shines by its own light. Swayam Prakasa means it is aware of itself just by being itself. So the real awareness doesn't need any mirror to see itself. I suspect what Bhagavan was saying was something much deeper and just hasn't been very well recorded there. In what sense is the world a mirror? That is, when we see the world, when we see any phenomena, can any phenomena appear without our presence? That is, all phenomena appear to whom? To us. So whatever phenomena we see, whatever phenomena we perceive, whatever phenomena we experience, it should remind us of ourselves, the experiencer. So rather than attending to the phenomena, we need to turn our attention back to the one to whom the phenomena appear. So I think Bhagavan may have been indicating something like that, but it has not been very well recorded. If we, a lot of so-called traditional Vedantins, the people who have studied the Upanishads, the Brahma Sutra, the Bhagavad Gita, and all these texts of classical Advaita, they often say this thing: the eye cannot see itself, so we cannot know ourselves. That is complete nonsense, because the eye is jada, whereas we ourselves are Chaitanya. We are awareness. So we, of course, there's never a moment when we are not aware of ourselves. The problem is that instead of being aware of ourselves as we actually are, we are now aware of ourselves as something other than what we actually are. We mistake ourselves to be a body, a person. So in order to remove this false awareness, I am this body, we need to be aware of ourselves as we actually are. If we couldn't be aware of ourselves, then, well, if we were not aware of ourselves, we wouldn't be aware of anything. So it's meaningless to say, but to use the analogy of the eye in this context, the physical organ of sight in this context, because the physical organ of sight is jada, we are Chaitanya. We know ourselves just by being ourselves. The problem is not that we do not know ourselves. The problem is that we know ourselves, but know ourselves wrongly. We know ourselves as something other than what we actually are. So long as we're aware of the appearance of anything other than ourselves, we who are aware of that are ego. That is the eye that is aware of itself as I am this body, is the eye that is aware of all these phenomena. So when these phenomena appear, they should remind us to turn our attention back to ourselves. That's why Bhagavan said, what's it matter however many thoughts rise? As and when each thought rises, it's necessary to investigate to whom it is arisen. If we investigate to whom it's arisen, it's clear to me. Then we have to hold on to that me. Who am I? And thereby the mind will return to its birthplace. In other words, it will subside back into its source. But again, it will come out because of a vast and constantly the mind will be coming out, and we constantly have to be turning it back. And by practicing and practicing in this manner, the strength of the mind to abide at its source increases. That's what Bhagavan says in the 6th paragraph of Nana. Ipadi paraka paraka. By practicing in this way, the manataku tampirapetitil tangi nikam shakti adikadikintradu. For the mind, the strength, the power to remain in its source will increase. But this practice is necessary, absolutely necessary.
Yes, but my point here is that Advaita's view that it is pure Satchitananda, and somehow from nowhere basically jumps this creative power to create something which never was created since the beginning. And we have so men of wisdoms like Bhagavan, etc., who achieve realization, but here we are again and again, and each of us has to go to his way to realize that nothing really ever happens since the beginning. And I think that it is a little bit strange. It's like a materialist view of Big Bang. From nowhere something blows up, and here we are, so many words, hills like Arunachala, etc. And the same is with Advaita Vedanta, because it's pure Satchit Ananda, it's Purnam. There is no wish like Kashmiri Shaivism, because here, if it is Ramana saying this is the view of Kashmiri Shaivism. This means that in creation there is Satchit Ananda, but it is also self-reflective, and he has urge to just have fun with itself, which is the position of all other religions, but not in Advaita Vedanta. So that this is my point. And we have another example where Ramana talks about Shakespeare. And he says, in England you also have Upanishads. How funny. Bhagavan creates Shakespeare, and now we have fun to listen Shakespeare, etc. So maybe around him there are many Kashmiri Shaivites in this time, and he talks on their language for them. This is my point.
We have to remember many people who are around Bhagavan did not have a very clear understanding of what he said. So many of the things that have been recorded is not what Bhagavan actually said, it's what people understood of what Bhagavan said. There's a big difference between what he actually said and what people understand. When we listen to something, it goes through the filter of our own understanding. We are constantly interpreting things. So many people misunderstood Bhagavan and therefore misrecorded him. Regarding this thing about what you were saying about this from Satchitananda, how this arises, there's a well-known story about Buddha. When someone asked him about the cause for all this samsara or whatever it was, I don't know what exactly the term that were used, he said, he told the story of a man who was hit by a poisoned arrow. When you're hit by a poisoned arrow, should you begin asking, what type of poison is it? Where did the poison come from? Who made the arrow? What is the arrowhead made of? Your first concern should be to remove the arrow quickly. Likewise, rather than worrying about how did this ego come into existence in the first place, let's try and remove it. And Bhagavan bridges these two. He says, when people ask, how did ego come into existence? Bhagavan simply said, investigate ego and see whether it has ever come into existence. If you investigate it, you'll find there's no such thing. And then the question of how it came into existence becomes irrelevant.
But we have Eka Vata, and always there is one Jiva which remains.
If we are looking for philosophical answers, if we want to explain everything, this is you know the story about Brahma and Vishnu and the appearance of Arunachala. Brahma took the form of a swan and was flying upwards. What that signifies is the outward going intellect, looking for answers, constantly going outwards, trying to find answers. That will come back telling a lie. So all science, philosophy, religion, all these things, ways that look for answers outside, will come back with lies. Vishnu, on the other hand, represents ego, but not the outward turned ego, the ego that is turning back within and burrowing deep down within. And so Vishnu, by subsiding, he became one with, he and Shiva are one. That's the significance of that story. So if we look for answers outside, if we want nice philosophical explanations, if we want neat answers for everything, we're going to just end up in confusion and delusion. We're going to end up with a lie. If we want real clarity, if we want real clarity, look within, because there's no clarity outside. The clarity lies only within. The benefit of Bhagavan's teachings is that they're telling us to turn within. Any philosophy or any religion or any science is useful only to the extent that it convinces us of the need to turn within. If any philosophy or religion or science asks us to look outwards and find answers outside, it's just adding to our delusion.
Right. Should just ignore it, move on. Right?
Clarity can be found only within.
So you are basically agreed that this is the weakest point of Advaita-like philosophical system, that she pretends that she gives answer of this part of appearance of ego. Maybe it was better to say, we don't know, this is a thing which we don't know, and to put a position of the Buddha.
Bhagavan has been very, very clear. Bhagavan says the root cause of all this appearance is ego. Investigate ego, and the whole problem is solved, because there's no such thing at all. Right. Ego seems to exist only so long as we look elsewhere. That's why often when people ask Bhagavan, why does ego exist? How did ego come into existence? He simply said, because of avichara, because of non-investigation. We obviously cannot say that it comes into existence because of avichara, but it seems to exist because of avichara, because of non-investigation. So the solution is to turn our attention back to ourselves, to attend to ourselves.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Michael.
So with that, we'll conclude today's session. Nice explanation of the verse and question and answers. Thank you, Michael. And we'll see you again next week. So next month for a discussion of verse 29.
Kumar.
Stephen.
Yeah,
where were you?
My iPad must have frozen, so I had to go to another device. And
okay, go ahead.
So thank you for that. It's very simple. Michael repeated slowly, slowly.
Yes.
Okay. This is my 10th anniversary being with the group. Who I was, or who I appeared to be 10 years ago, and who I seem to be today is completely different, and no telling what that change could really look like. I can't see myself. I can only reflect my behaviors then, and I can reflect my behaviors now. So I wanted to give those who maybe need to hear that, I want to say it works. Self-investigation, it works. The second thing before Michael, you respond, is that conviction. I don't know how it lands for others. It's a strong sense to have conviction. What fits for me is faith. I got the first four verses, and faith has me absorb the conversation as much as I can absorb with what I understand in self-investigation. I just wanted to say those two things.
Yes. Yes. People often say, have you achieved what have you achieved self-knowledge or something? If you've not achieved self-knowledge, how do you know this works? You don't need to achieve self-knowledge. That if we follow this path, it'll be very, very clear to us how this is working. It's not a dramatic thing. It's not, but that's very, very subtle but very clear signs that the more we follow this, the more detached, that it's very difficult to put it into words because it's not something that can be quantified. But the fact that this is working is very, very clear if we're truly following this path of self-investigation.
I agree.
Things that affected us in the past no longer affect us or don't affect us in the same way. Yes, we still have desires, we still have attachments, but somehow they impact us less than they did in the past.
Yes.
It's very difficult to put it adequately into words, but it is very clear. If we're really following this path, it's very clear how efficacious this is.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have to agree with that I've been doing this for 40 years and it has changed me completely. I have a terrible condition, but I still have inner peace.
Yes, exactly. And we know whatever terrible condition we may be in, physically or mentally or economically or whatever our position is, all these are passing. Nothing is going to last. Nothing is going to last.
Exactly. Well, the body will die.
Exactly. So, so while we have this body, let's make good use of it.
Amen.
And by trying our best to turn within.
And
let's not worry about whether we're going to get liberation. Some people say, but if I don't get liberation in this life, let's not worry about it. Yeah. Bhagavan has started us on this path. There's no turning back now. So if the body drops off and we don't drop off along with it, then will carry on the same thing.
The tiger has got us in his jaws.
Exactly.
Very good. Thank you, Michael. And with that, we'll conclude the session.
Can I just say one thing? I don't know if you noticed, I sent you a reply to that email about with the translation. I sent 2 further emails, slight changes. About
Yes, Michael, I saw that. Yeah. And I have actually incorporated it in the updated document. Yes. Thank you so much. Yeah. That was nice.